go through, we're going to go through the kind of the basics of organization, executive function, what that looks like. And then the second session, I really kind of want to hear your questions, and I want to hear what is most on your mind. And then we will, the second session will be diving into these things in more detail. Okay.
Mhm.
So, all right. So today we're going to cover I think it's really important that we talk about executive function and what it really is, because you guys probably have heard that term. And unless you're in our organizational, unless you're hanging out with us a lot, you probably don't know a lot about what it means and how it really impacts you. So we're going to talk about executive function. We talk about tips on planning, organizing, and follow through. One of the things that's really important is we're going to give you, again, an overview, but part of what you have to remember is this is very personal to you and your brain injury and what you need. So if we talk about a planner, one of the things you'll hear us talk about is that may be very different for everybody. Some people may need paper. Some may use their calendar on their phone. Some may do all of the above. So we're just giving you an idea of like how to organize things. We're also going to talk about the things out in your life that are impacting your ability to be organized, because I think that's really important that you look in your environment as well. We'll talk about some tools you can use right away, and then we're going to leave with a really simple action plan of some simple things that you can do. And like Jamie said, this is very personal to you. I do not have a brain injury. I could not put all of these into place in one day. None of our brains work that way. So it's really important that if you say, hey, that's something I haven't tried, that you try one thing, and then we'll talk more about how to do some processing to get those things together. Okay. All right, Jamie.
I lost my screen. There it is. Okay.
Okay. So
Uh,
speaking of executive function.
Speaking of executive functions, okay, so some of us at least, have maybe heard this term. What is that exactly? And I think that in a nutshell, it's your things in your brain that help you meet your goals, right?
Yep.
Essentially. Okay, so planning, organizing, and executing tasks effectively. It's self-control, it's your adaptability and flexibility. It's all of these things working together. So we may, go, oh, I'm pretty good at this piece, but I'm maybe need a little work on this other part. But all of them work together, okay? And that's basically how we're getting through our day, right? Um, do you have another slide on that?
I do.
Ah, great. Oh, we got a brain.
We got a brain.
And so here we go again. We're talking, problem solving, self-monitoring, emotional regulation, memory, understanding language and processing that, organization, sequencing, so what steps things go in, right? And knowing where to start. Okay. So there's a lot of things here. But again, these are all working together to help us get through our day,
Yeah.
our daily life.
And one of
Um,
the things that I think is really important is all of the stuff sits in your frontal lobe. So there's actually a piece of your frontal lobe that's called what's it called, Jamie? I
I
just
can't read
lost
your
it.
mind.
I know it's, oh, you can't read my mind.
Not yet.
It's the CEO of your brain. And so there's a part of your
Yeah.
executive function is actually, it's all the things that work together to problem solve, to have judgment. What the judgment means is not necessarily that you're making good judgments, but that you're not impulsively making decisions.
Mm.
That you're self-monitoring your own emotions. Like that is and so one of the things I think it's really important as we walk through this is when you have a brain injury, often that piece of self-monitoring your emotions and being able to go, oh, wait, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And so I'm going to take a step back and go do something else. That's an executive function that's very high level. And one of the things that I hope you find as we walk through this is that when you don't have outside tools to help you organize your brain, you're going to feel more overwhelmed. So I switched to do systems here recently. And for 2 weeks, I was totally overwhelmed because I tried to switch systems and it wasn't working in the same way and I had to adjust it. So that is a normal part of the brain and how it works, which is why the planning is really important. But then you add a brain injury on top of that and you can see like why that gets so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So again, we're talking about some kind of core things here today with organizing an organization, right? Thinking ahead. Okay. So planning and prioritizing. And we can talk some more about that. Being able to stay on track, your time management. You might hear time management. And being able to maintain your focus on particular tasks and being able to balance what you're doing throughout the day, right? Effectively managing your time and your resources. And sometimes when we talk about resources, we're talking about our physical and cognitive stamina, right? And so being able to stay on track, even when maybe we're not feeling so great physically, and kind of what does that look like? Following through with tasks. So being able to initiate tasks. I know, I hear a lot. Um, I know I need to do something, but I just can't quite get started, right? And how do I get started doing whatever it is? And then when we get distracted, being able to get back on track, okay, so that we can complete that goal.
One of the things I want to point out too here is the self-control. And so what we're meaning is not necessarily around your emotions, but not is it's kind of this internal ability to pull your brain together, not yourself, your brain together to go, oh, there's something in my brain I need to think about doing, but I'm not going to follow it. I'm going to stick here and stay on target and stay on track of what I'm doing. And so when we talk about self-control, we're not talking about like, oh, are you going around yelling at people? Like it's not this emotional self-control. There's this internal control around your brain and how you're managing those things within your brain.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Some
Uh,
days works better than others.
yeah, absolutely. So, to that point, I think, we talk about strategies a lot, and I have people tell me, well, before my injury, I didn't have to do any of this, right? Um, I think for many people, I mean, I'm talking about myself included. It's not the days that I'm feeling great that I really need these strategies. It's the other days, right?
Yeah.
It's the when I'm stressed, when things are thrown into my path that I don't expect. And so all of this regulating yourself and doing all of that, it's great when we're having our best day, right? We don't, maybe don't need the strategies as much on our best day. But I don't have a best day every day. And,
Mm-hmm.
I rely very heavily personally on my strategies. And so when I practice them and use them and find out what works the best for me, then they're there for me whenever I'm really, really stressed or when I am tired
Mm-hmm.
or when I'm not feeling well, and so I'm more likely to be able to accomplish the basics on those days because I already have these things in place.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a few things, here you can see um, basic tools. Okay. And so I think some of these we've maybe have suggested before, but they're good ones. And so that's why we're bringing them up again. Um, sometimes we have a hard time getting started on something, and a micro start strategy is just committing to maybe 5 minutes of doing something, right? Not feeling the overwhelm of, well, I've got to get all this stuff done and I've got to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10 steps, and I got to do all this and just do 5 minutes, right? Can we do that 5 minutes? Okay. And so that can be a way to kind of maybe decrease the overwhelm a little bit so that you can just get started. You can get started on something. Um, Visual timers kind of help with that as well. I wish I had it. I actually found a Pomodoro timer, a little
Mm-hmm.
tomato. But a stop, excuse me, a stopwatch app, a kitchen timer. When I say kitchen timer, excuse me, Right now, I'm talking about just the little handheld ones that are the manual ones, right? The little cheap ones that we had in the 80s,
Hmm.
that you just go boop, and then it just times you for 10 seconds or 10 minutes or something like that. Pardon me. Your watch, there's a lot of things out there that we can use. Um, Pomodoro method speaks to that. And Pomodoro is basically a tomato, which is back to the old school tomato timers that, look like a tomato that you would use in your kitchen. Um, but the idea is that you do a task for an allotted amount of time and then you build breaks in. Okay. So you're doing the task for, say, 20 minutes. If you can't do 20 minutes, then don't do 20 minutes. Do
Hmm.
15, do 10, right? But tell yourself, I'm going to do this for X amount of time, whatever that means. I'm going to do this for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to take a 5-minute break. And this is what my break is going to be. And you say to yourself, I'm going to get up out of my chair, or I'm going to go out of the room, or I'm going to go outside for 5 minutes and just get some sun and get some nature. Um, but you kind of script it out, right? You tell your time where to go. And so you do the thing for 20 minutes or 15 minutes and then you take your break, right? You set your timer for that amount of time, and when it dings, you stop, you put a marker on what you were doing so you know where to come back to, and then you go take your break. Okay. And so lots of studies have been done on this. But the idea is that you're piecing it a little bit so that it's uh, more doable. And also I don't know anyone who can truly focus for 2 straight hours, right?
Hmm.
So you're starting on the offset, just saying, like, I know I'm not going to focus this long. That's fine. It's all good. But what I am going to do is I'm going to say, for 10 minutes, I'm going to focus. And then I'm going to take a break. And then I'm going to come back again for 10 more minutes. And then I'm going to take a break, right? And so that's kind of how that works. Um, some people can. Somebody just wrote that, right? I don't know if I'll be honest, I don't know if I truly believe that that is truly full on focus for 2 hours, but
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
somebody can do it out there, but I cannot. So, uh, okay. Maddie, do you want to talk about that emotional information overload
Yeah.
piece?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier. Like, I think part of it is that you got to you got to give yourself compassion for this. So there'll be Friday. If Friday's my last day of the week, and if it's been a long Friday, that's my day that I do catch up work and I do try to do some deep work. And there are just some days I can't do it because it's been a long week. And so I think part of this is just understanding how you work, what time of days you work. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but that you also understand whether or not you're in an emotional space to do it. Because if I'm really stressed out today, sitting and doing some really deep thought work or organizing my closet, which I'm not good at, is not going to happen. And so I'm not even going to try it because it's just going to frustrate me. So I think part of this is, again, this is about progress and not perfection. And what I have found is part of your journey is really just discovering how your new brain works and when you need to give yourself compassion and when you need to take breaks because it's just not working. So if you
Mhm.
set your timer for 20 minutes and you can't focus for 20 minutes, that's okay. You've learned something. You've learned that, today is not the day that I'm going to focus for 20 minutes. Let me try 5. And that's part of that emotional piece to look at.
There's a whole bunch of questions I noticed that just came in on the chat. Do
Yeah,
we?
Dana, we can stop right there. Let's do that habit stacking real quick, and then we'll
Okay.
take the questions,
Okay.
Janie.
What's happening is I don't have the questions open, but I can see when a new one pops up.
Oh, yes. Dana's
or
monitoring those for us.
or a new comment or
Yeah,
whatever. So,
yeah, yeah. She's
um,
monitoring those for us.
sorry
So
about that. I just
that's
wanted to
okay.
make sure we were
Speaking
giving
of
time.
focus and attention,
Hmm. And back to what we were doing, right?
okay, yeah.
So habit stacking is the last thing that's on that slide. And basically what that is you're taking a new thing that you want to do, a new habit that you're trying to make, something in your process, that you're wanting to add in to your routine, something like that. And instead of saying, it's a separate thing I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna, remind myself to do it at this time every day, you're stacking it with something you're already doing. So, for example, um, having your morning cup of tea, let's say you do that every single morning, pretty much, and you're like, that's pretty routine for me. I kind of get up and I kind of do the thing, and then I go in and make my tea, and I sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and I drink my tea. Um, Maybe you're trying to establish a new memory strategy, like like having a planner and doing a planner review of your day. So maybe we try stacking it with your tea drinking time, right? Where you can sort of calmly sit there, drink your tea, review your day that's coming up, right? And so now you're not creating a new time of day that you're having to do a new routine. You're taking the new routine and you're adding it, stacking it to something that is already routine for you, already something you do a lot. So that's the kind of the idea there. All
Excuse
right.
me.
Yes.
There is one question. This is Dana. There's one question in the chat that I think is timely. I
Yeah,
don't want to interrupt, but Lynn is asking, what if taking a small break then makes it very difficult to get my brain back into what
good
I was
question.
doing?
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were you going to answer that, Maddie? Sorry, I
Oh,
couldn't
no, no,
tell.
no, no. No, yeah, I think, Lynn, that's a very good, that's an incredibly important question. And especially after brain injury, getting back to it, which is what we were talking about with what we call initiation, right? This ability to maneuver or go from one thing to another and then go back. It's kind of this multitasking thing. Um, I think, there's multiple things that you can do. I think the recognition of that, Lynn, is the most important thing, that you know that you do that. And so it may be that you don't switch as much.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that, and then I'm going to ask Jamie to answer this too, but it may be that you take 20 minutes and instead of going to do something else, you just sit and breathe for a couple of minutes and then go
Mm-hmm.
back to it, so that it's not that you're going over and getting engaged in something, but you're actually doing some self-care in between, so that you have the power and you're not getting disengaged from that task. Jamie?
Yeah, yeah. No, I would agree with that. I think that, right, this is where this becomes really, really
Yeah.
personalized, right?
Yeah.
You know that about yourself. And so
Yep.
you don't go, oh, I'm going to do 10 and 5 and 10 and 5 and 10 and 5 and leave the room. Maybe all you do is you do a 20-minute work focus, and then your timer goes off, and then you sit there and you stretch, and
Yeah.
then but you stay in the same spot, for example,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
not leaving the room. Again, everybody's a little bit different in their needs and what is helpful for them. Personally, like, when I'm seeing clients back to back to back to back to back, sometimes in the middle, they're tired, we're tired, so we're like, can we just walk out of the room for a minute? We're just going to walk the loop and come back. And so that's the reason I'm suggesting something like that. Sometimes that's helpful for people to just be able to get some space from the workstation.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not helpful for you, absolutely, right? Maybe you don't leave. Maybe you put something else in there, right? You like I said, you do, chair stretches, you do some breathing exercises that help you manage your stress, some other type of activity. I know there was a question, and I was kind of speak to this too. Yes, we have a lot of people that um, set a lot of timers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're
Um,
going to address that
and
later
we'll
too,
address that
Jamie.
later
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But I think to the point of,
Yeah.
the reason that something like a kitchen timer is helpful, you're in your hand, it's right there. Um, Once you start putting too many things on your phone, I can see that can get a little bit tough, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we'll come back to that for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Dana, this is a good place to stop if there's some more comments or questions or.
no?
No? Dana, was there anything else? No.
Someone
Okay.
says get up and get a drink and come back.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear, in my brain a lot, I hear people that I've worked with over the years and telling me their different strategies. And yeah, that's definitely one of
Mm-hmm.
them. It's just sort of a like, I'm giving myself a pause, right? Giving yourself a pause. Even if I'm just going to go to the bathroom and come back, or go grab a snack and come back or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you can have your snacks right there, put them in the drawer next to you or something too. So.
Well, and Cambria says that her dog comes and tells her that she needs a break. I love that. And what a
That's good
beautiful way. I
too.
mean, talk about like emotional dysregulation, like getting your dog to come and tell you, hey, you need a break is beautiful. I love that. That's awesome.
Uh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, new one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thinking ahead, um, the words planning and prioritizing, I know sometimes that feels like a four-letter word to people, but it can be your friend. It can definitely help you in the long run. But we need time to do it, right? There actually needs to be some sort of set time that we take and a few minutes and focus on whatever the strategies are that we're going to do that help us to plan and prioritize. Okay. Some of the ideas are, writing down the list of things to do. There's a slide later down the road that mentions brain dumping.
Mhm.
And you've probably heard that term, brain dump. Uh, Basically, I'm going to take, 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, I guess, if you need it. And I'm just going to write down everything I can think of that I need to do. And no, I'm not categorizing it. I'm not prioritizing it. I'm just writing them all down. I'm just dumping them onto a sheet. Okay. You can do this with voice to text too, if you don't want to write it, but it's basically you're just dumping your ideas down. You're dumping them somewhere. And then what you do is you start to prioritize those, right? So if it's a really long list, we shorten it to like the top 3 to 5 things. So a way to do that is you take your list of however many things you just brain dumped, and you can give it a score. Okay, how
Mhm.
urgent is this thing and how quickly do I need to do this thing, right? So I don't have an example of this to show you on the screen, but for example, let's say I brain dumped, I need to go pick up my meds. I need to buy dog food. Since somebody said there's a dog, right? I need to go buy dog food. I need to look for a specific type of shirt that I need for a job thing in 2 months, right? I would probably prioritize those as, right, number one, go get the meds, right? Number two, get the dog food. And then probably number three, because I still have lots of time to do it, right?
Mhm.
So that's how you kind of shrink that down. And then you estimate how long is this going to take me? Okay, so how long is it going to take me to go get my meds? 30 minutes, an hour? It depends. It depends on your own life and your own schedule and what you got going on. Transportation. Maybe you get them delivered. That'd be great, but maybe you need a few minutes to set that up. Okay. So you have to estimate how long it's going to actually take you to do the things. Okay. Um, Once you've done that, you're looking into your planner system, whatever that is. That might be your Google Calendar, your Apple Calendar. It might be paper and pencil planner. Okay. But whatever it happens to be, you're looking in there at your life and what things you have scheduled, and you're saying, when am I going to do this thing? When do I have time? And when does it make sense to go do the meds, right? Go get the meds. And then you plug it in. And the important part about plugging it into your life, I know it's hard to do that sometimes for people because they go, "Oh, I have a to-do list and I'm just going to take care of the to-do list," right? This is stuff that takes time in your day. This is
Mhm.
part of your life. This is time that is represented in your day. If we don't put it somewhere in our planner system that we're using to organize our day, there's a higher chance that it's going to get left, you know.
Mhm.
uh, I forgot about it. Or I didn't plan appropriately and I didn't think it was going to take me as long. And I didn't allot enough time to go do it. And I only had an hour, and it took me 30 minutes to drive there. And then it took me 15 minutes to get it. And then I was late getting back to my next thing, whatever. But that's that process in a nutshell. So yeah, and it's difficult sometimes to estimate how long things will take,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes what I do with, yeah, sorry,
Hey,
did somebody
Lynn,
have a question?
Lynn, can you put yourself on mute? Because we can hear the background. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought maybe somebody had
Yeah.
broken in with a question. What was I saying? What were we talking about? Oh, prioritizing time. Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody meant
estimating time. Yeah.
estimating
Scott
time.
said it was hard to estimate time.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
it
is.
can be. It
Yeah.
can be, especially for tasks that we've never done before,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
So just estimate more than less.
Yes.
So if you're not sure if it's going to take 30 minutes to an hour, then do the hour and then you just have extra time in the day.
Yeah. And then the next time you do it, you'll
Yeah.
say, oh, well, it only took me 30 minutes less
Yeah.
time. So I'm going to give myself 30 minutes. I'm going to give myself a 10-minute buffer, 10 or 15-minute buffer. So I'm going to put it in my calendar that I need 45 minutes to do this. If that makes sense. Yeah, sorry.
It's
Oh,
Lynn.
thank you.
Yeah.
Something keeps popping on and off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is again, this is a trial, which is very frustrating for people, is trial and error. I don't do well with that. Like that's not something I enjoy doing. But this is why we said in the beginning, like these things, estimating time may not be one of the issues you have. Estimating time may be. So that's why it's just, I think, really hard. I think, Jamie, what we'll do the second session is do some trial on this kind of stuff so that they can help discover like what's really the issue. And so we'll do some practice at the second session so you can kind of see what's working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, staying on track. Okay, so we've talked about using a planner that works for you. I use the word planner, date book, agenda. I'm trying to think what other people have called it. There's a lot of names for this thing. But it's basically your second brain where you keep all of your appointments and all of your tasks that you need to do, and you are prioritizing and you are scheduling things out so that you can complete them, right? And so again, written or electronic depends on you. It depends on your brain. There's a lot of benefits to either. I would recommend that you find one that works for you and try to stick to one place that you keep all of the information. Okay. That doesn't mean you can't write stuff down in like a journal too. But if you're going to have information in 3 or 4 different places, there's a lot more room for errors to be made and for mistakes to be made. There's a lot more possibilities that you're going to double book yourself or run out of time or forget something if it's just in too many places. And we see this a lot. We see this kind of over and over again. And so, yes, there are some people that can handle multiple calendars. I'm going to throw that out there. Okay. But the overall recommendation on this is not to have things in too many places, if that makes sense. Okay. It can become very, very stressful and frustrating very quickly. So I would just say that. We talked about this briefly a slide or so ago, but right here it says plan the week every Sunday. It can be Sunday, it could be Saturday, like I don't know, whenever it makes sense for you. Okay. What's the beginning of your week? Some people say it's Monday, some people say it's Sunday, right? It doesn't really matter. It just depends on what you like to do. And you say, okay, before my week begins, I am going to allot however much time, right? And we'll go back to estimating time later, but however much time I need to plan my week, right? Make sure I have written down or typed in every appointment that I have coming up, the tasks that I want to have completed for the week, including any time it takes me to get transported back and forth to places, because that's part of my day. That's part of the time that's being used, right? And the tasks that I'm going to do. And, partly I know there's some flexibility in when we do certain tasks, like if you don't do your laundry on a Monday, maybe that's okay. But generally you like to, right? But something may come up and you've got to move it. You got to move it to another day. I recommend usually that people move that thing from their calendar on Monday to whatever day that they are now going to do it, because that is a good chunk of time that you need to be spending on this task. And it takes up your day. It takes time in your day, right? It is essentially an appointment with yourself. Okay. And I say that because that's a common theme that comes up. And I think Maddie and I've talked about this, and we've probably both heard this, that, well, I only put my appointments in my planner, right?
Mhm.
Well, that's not representative of your entire day, right? You're doing other things in your day. Do you need to put every little tiny little detail down? Not necessarily, unless that's helpful for you. But when you're deciding on doing tasks and things that take up your time, you're essentially making an appointment with yourself to do them. Okay. So I use that verbiage because, we put appointments in our calendar, right? You can put appointments with yourself into your calendar in order to complete tasks. Okay.
I want to real
Yep.
quick, Jamie, can I add to that? So one of the things I think I'm going to tell you guys, I resisted this for years because it feels very weird and I don't like it. And I'm more flexible. Like I want to go through my day, but here's what happens is when you don't actually put those things in your calendar. So let's say laundry. If I don't put laundry on my calendar on Monday, and it looks like a blank, then guess what?
It gets
If I
filled
have to
up.
move it another day, it's going to fill up with something else. So this is what I think is really important is that when you don't structure your day, and we're going to talk about routines and the importance of routines here in a bit, but when you don't structure your day, you're going to probably be wandering around doing other things that aren't on your list of things to do, because that's how our brains are trained, is to go find other things to do, right? What I want
Right.
this, I'm going to go do that. But you aren't getting your stuff done. And then the important piece emotionally of that is that then you get frustrated with yourself and you get frustrated with your brain and you get frustrated with all the things. And so I'm just going to someone who really hated this, and we'll talk about it later too, because it's a really important part. It's really important that you make those appointments with yourself, because it is going to fill up with something that maybe you didn't need to do. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy. It's easy to talk about it. It's not always super easy to do it. And it does take practice. And I will be honest, Maddie and I've talked about this. Somebody, I don't know who, when I was a teenager said, "Hey, you need to take this, course on how to plan and use a planner and all that." And I did. And I think back to that all the time and I go, gosh, I have had to do that, has saved me many, many times in my life. But there's lots of iterations of it. I've had different types of planners. I've
yeah.
had different strategies that I've used and sometimes abandoned because they didn't work very well for me. So it's not that you have to go, here's my strategy, and this is always going to work for me, and this is great. We just want you to say, okay, is what I'm doing right now actually working to the point where I'm getting the things done that I'm saying are priority to me, right? Is it actually helping me? Is it actually working? And so
Yeah.
sometimes we have to change a little bit, right? And we have to kind of adjust because our lives aren't necessarily the same year after year after year, right? We have different things going on. We have different, things that demand our time, So it can grow and move a little bit. But these are just some of the strategies that could be helpful. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was going to
Go
say,
ahead.
and also, we mentioned here scheduling harder tasks during the time of day that you're at your best. Um, this is kind of tricky, I know, for a lot of people. Okay, what's my best time of day? Maybe you don't feel like you have all that many, right? But again, just thinking about it, like, am I waiting until the end of the day to do the things that really take a lot of cognitive energy? Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should try to do them earlier in the day. And if I'm not successful that day, then that's okay. But I'm thinking about it and thinking about the best time of day in which I
Oops.
have the
Sorry.
best possible opportunity to be able to do this, if that makes sense. Sorry, Maggie.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I wanted to address Autumn has a comment around, and I think it's an important one around when you're injured young and you grow up with the brain injury, things look very different, but the strategies do not look different. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really important question, because even if you have a brain injury when you're before your brain starts developing, like, so adults, what we're talking about is when like if you have a brain injury as an adult, even as a teen, there's kind of that you have this world before the brain injury and this world after the brain injury. And when you're injured really young, that's not the case. Your brain injury is part of your personality and your world. But these strategies are not about like when you were injured. All of these will work. Even people without brain injuries need to use these strategies. So,
Me.
yeah, me too. Like the other day, I was like, I need to go see a speech therapist. I mean, seriously, because this is all stuff that regardless of whether or not when your brain was injured, these things are still very important. Okay.
Okay. All right. Again, so like I said, we're going to throw a lot of different possible strategies at you. If one or two of them stick, that's good. But here we've got some more things to think about in regards to how you are deciding how to prioritize, how you're doing what we just talked about, right? How are you planning?
Mhm.
You can start with the end. Okay. So that is a strategy to use. You can say, what do I want the end result to be? And then that could possibly guide your effort, you know. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my
I've
head.
got one. So
Oh
let's
yeah.
say that, yeah. So let's say that you have, that you're working on a project, and by the end, so for me, what it might look like is I need to get a contract into the state by Friday. That's going to influence all of my week and what I do and what I put in my calendar. And the other thing I wanted to go back to too. So what that might look like then is like every Sunday. So I have an electronic calendar when we talk about planners. I have an electronic calendar for my appointments, but I have an actual handwritten calendar for what my day is going to flow. And so what that might mean is I go, okay, on Friday, I have to get this in. Here are my open spaces, like we were talking about just a moment ago. Like, here are my open spaces. I know I work those things better in the morning, not in the afternoon, because I'm not an afternoon person. So then I'm going to go plan my time out based on having that end in mind when my actual best times of day are, and how my day flows. So that's an example of how that might work together.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
It can be for a lot of things. And I
Yeah.
think projects are an easy one as an example of that.
Yeah.
Because there's usually a deadline
Yeah.
of some sort, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a really good one to use with deadlines. Things that, and to be fair, you might be creating the deadline for
That's what I
yourself,
was about to say. I need my
right?
closet filled out by next Friday.
Right. You could be creating the deadline for yourself. It doesn't have to come from an external source,
Yeah.
right? But if you're in college, if you're
Mm-hmm.
working, that might just not be your option. They may say, we need it X amount of time, this day,
Mm-hmm.
this time. Um, Time blocking. So time blocking is basically giving yourself specific times for tasks to sort of help you to be able to focus on something. One way that I have used this, and it works for some people, doesn't work for everybody perfectly, but um, is to say, well, I generally have, 10 things on my to-do list that are administrative, okay, that I'm sitting at my desk to do, for example. I'm going to block off, a chunk of
Mm-hmm.
time, 2 hours on Fridays, okay? And that is when I'm going to take care of the list, what's ever on it, right? To the best of my ability. And I may, during that 2 hours, use the Pomodoro method, right? And I may set my timer so that I'm not staring at my computer screen and
Mm-hmm.
zoning out, right? Because I do that. I will zone out. I may use a couple of different strategies together like that. But essentially, it's you saying, this is the time that I am blocking off of my day so that I don't put anything else in it so that I can complete whatever tasks it is, right? sometimes people use this, like I've gotten examples before of like, this is my 2 hour chunk of creative thinking time, or something like that. If you have sort of a
Mhm.
creative thing you like to do, you're an artist, you're a maker, you're a whatever, right? Or you like to, at your job, you have to do some creative thinking about something. Maybe you're blocking off, a 1 hour chunk every day, and that's what you're doing. You're spending time brainstorming, right? You're thinking, you're creating, whatever that happens to be. So it can be a lot of things, actually. But again, it's the idea that you're blocking time in your calendar. You're setting it aside for a purpose. And then we're back to the top three priorities kind of
Mhm.
thing. Okay. So depending on your life and what you got going on, you may have more than three, right? But the idea is that you're zoning in on the main idea of the day, right?
Yeah.
If I don't get anything else done today, I need to get these three things done, right? That's kind of the idea behind that. And then those are the things you concentrate on. Okay. So if I am not done with number one on my list, I'm not doing anything else until I do it. Maybe you tell yourself that. So again, it's
Mhm.
just saying to yourself, what matters the most that I get done today? And then you're setting that aside. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Maddie?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is real important about the top three priorities, and I see this over and over, is that we'll have, I'll have someone, and we talked briefly, and we'll talk more about the brain dump. Just you sit down and write all the things you have to go get done. And this isn't just people with brain injuries, this is everybody. And then you see that list and it just feels way overwhelming. But here's what happens when to some people with a brain injury is it not only feels overwhelming, but your lack of initiation that's part of the symptoms pops in because you're overwhelmed. And so then it's just like, okay, I'm like, I can't do any of it. I can't do it all. So I'm just not going to do any of it. It just feels like you're climbing a mountain because there's so much to do. The reason that's that way is because not only these are the list of things to do, but there's all this sub list stuff. Like you can't, it's like call the doctor. Okay, well, you got to call the doctor. You got to figure out what button to push. You got to stay on hold till somebody answers. You got to remember, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not just call the doctor. So I think this top three priorities is really important. And so what we'll do sometimes is have someone have, or what I do actually, honestly, is have a list of things to do for the whole week. Like, here's all the stuff I've got to get done. And then I'll take the top three priorities for that day. Like Monday, here's the top three priorities I got to get done today. Because otherwise, what my brain does when it sees that whole list is it goes, well, I can't do all that. So just forget it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important thing to look at is to do the top three priorities. Because then what happens is that becomes surmountable. Like it's something you can do. That's a hill, not a mountain to climb. So I think using that piece is really important.
That brought up a memory that I just thought of a specific time that I had some stressy things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself re, thinking about my strategies for that time
Mm-hmm.
period.
Yeah.
And what I came up with was kind of really what you're talking about. But not even just that. I said, I can't even, I have to write it. It's
Mm-hmm.
all in my computer and I'm discombobulated and I need to write it. And
Yeah.
so I got a thing that I put up on a poster board really is what it
Yeah.
was. And I put it up on my wall and I wrote out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was able to then shrink it down like
Yeah.
she's talking about. And so sometimes, like I said, we get overwhelmed and some of our strategies are working, but we need to think about it again. And so but that's all in that process. It's that process of going, what are my priorities? If you're having a hard time deciding what your priorities are, um, go back to the brain dump.
Right.
List everything out. Okay, I got to do this, 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 this. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the smallest thing that you're thinking of, but just getting it out of your brain and onto a I'll say a sheet or a paper or
Mhm.
something like that, where you can see everything together can also be very helpful. And then you can start going 1, 2, 3, right? These are the top things that I need to worry about right now.
Well,
Um,
and I think the important thing too, what you're talking about, Jamie, and this is a lot of times what we do for people is we, especially after brain injury, unless they an electronic calendar was a part of their lives before, especially, but is we have them go to paper and pen. And whenever I talk to people about journaling or writing down things, I always encourage people to use pen and paper. And here's why. Your brain works better when you use pen and paper. It just does. Or a pencil. I don't use pen because I
or a
have to scratch it
crayon.
out. Or crayon, whatever your preference is. When you have to write, both the parts of your brain have to work together. And so it forces you to slow down, to think, and to process information. So, sometimes we'll have people kick back at us and like, well, I don't want to write that down. And I get that. I get that. But what Jamie's saying is super important when you're thinking about organization and planning is your brain actually works better in those things when you write things down. So what we'll do sometimes is, and that's why I actually handwrite my schedule every week, because that's what gets it into my brain of this is what I'm going to do every day. This is how I'm planning my life out. And then I might put it into my calendar, my electronic calendar, and that's okay. But I think that's a really important point while she's talking about how, like, the other important point I want to make that Jamie just talked about is we've talked about this a little bit, but your strategies may have to change based on where you are in your life. And when I do counseling, I talk about having an emotional toolbox that when life gets stressful, you pop it open, you have all these tools that you can work through, that you pull out new tools because your old ones aren't working the same because life is stressful. I think this is the exact same thing. I think you have a toolbox of planning. And when life isn't stressful or life is kind of going around, you got a couple of tools, they're working great for you. But then as soon as life changes, you get a job, you get stressed about life because that's life, then you pull out new tools. And that's exactly what Jamie did. She was overwhelmed. So she got a poster board and just wrote everything down and went back to it. And that's her new tool to use when life is stressful. So,
yeah. Yeah.
okay.
I think what's hard is that sometimes, we get stuck in the moment because
Mm-hmm.
of all of the emotional stuff that's happening, right, too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, right? It may not happen right away, but I think the point here is that if you're trying out some different strategies and you go, that's great. It actually works really well for a time period, and I've used it for a time period, and then maybe you move on from it and do something different. You still know how to do that strategy, right?
Yeah.
You still have that in your toolbox, so to speak. And so it's okay to go back, right? It's not a
Mm-hmm.
failure, or anything to be able to go, well, my Google Calendar is just stressing me out. So I'm going to go back to using
Mm-hmm.
paper and pen if I can, or I'm going to supplement it with some sort of written journaling thing, so that I can process it,
Yeah.
right? Writing helps us to process information really, really well. So, and you can always write, right? So maybe it's voice to texting it
Yeah.
into a document of some sort, but you can see everything together, right? And so there's a lot
Yeah.
of ways to do it, but yeah, it's just being able to flex and being flexible about some of that. Sticking with strategies. Okay, so following through with strategies. I like checking.
Sorry. That was
Oh,
me.
stop.
Speaking of attention, my finger
Oh,
got, sorry.
we're getting probably close to our little break time. So,
Yeah.
um, checking your planner or date book or whatever you're calling it, your agenda, all of that every morning when you wake up and evening before bed. Now, I want to be careful to say that I have known this and recently implemented this in my own life, but I think it is a good thing not to look at your phone right away when you first wake up in the morning.
I
Uh,
agree.
but, but all of that being said, some point in the morning before you move forward with your day, having some sort of time period that you can just check into your planner, right? This isn't the only time you're doing this, by the way. Okay. You're not doing this
Yeah.
one time a day. Um, the more you can be utilizing your strategy, your memory strategy, your planning strategy, the more likely you are to not overbook yourself, make errors, forget things, all of that. So it's a strategy that we're utilizing hopefully throughout the day. But in the morning time or whenever your start of day is, you're saying, I need to, double check my schedule before I head out, right? I'm just going to just take a peek at it. It takes me 30 seconds, like I'm so used to doing it. I just kind of scan through, remind myself of what I got going on, and it helps me prevent errors. And it does on a regular basis because I've looked at it again and gone, oh, yeah, I remember that thing now. I'm really glad I looked at my planner because I might have forgotten to do that if I hadn't, right? And so it just gives you another opportunity to touch base with your second brain, right?
Mhm.
Um, Starting the week with and before bed too. So that's another idea. Again, if you're using screens, especially, I wouldn't recommend you like right before you go to sleep being in there looking at your screens. Okay. We can talk about why that is later, but
Mhm.
sometime before you're winding your day down, right? Whatever that looks like, your bedtime routine, before you're in bed, right? Just take a peek at it again. What's coming up tomorrow? Just remind yourself again about what you got going on. Okay. The things that you planned for yourself, the appointments you made with yourself and the appointments that you have with others, right? So that's at least morning and evening, if not any other time of the day, like so that you can start your day being reminded of what you got going on and end your day being reminded of what's happening the next day.
I want to
Yeah.
give it real quick. When thinking about it, I want to give you guys and Jamie told me I needed to use this one day. There's a thing called a brick, BRIK, and does cost, but it doesn't have a monthly fee. And what it does is, I think this is a really important thing because exactly what Jamie said, if your calendar is on your phone, there is nothing like that phone to get you distracted and go down
Hmm.
rabbit holes that you didn't even want to get down, right? Because you get on
Right.
your phone, look at your calendar, and you see a notification, and it just goes on. So this brick, and Dana, when I send the PowerPoint, I'll include the brick link. The brick is actually it's just a little device that you put somewhere, and you program it to turn apps on and off on your phone. And so then you touch your phone to it, and it turns all the apps off except the ones you need. And then have to go back and touch your phone to it again, and it turns them on. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is that would be a really good tool to use if you are using your calendar on your phone, but you get distracted when you're looking at it. You can go and touch your phone like at 6 o'clock in the evening, and everything shuts off. And then after you get up the next morning, once you look at your calendar, you get ready, then you can go touch your phone again, and
Yeah.
it'll turn things on. So it's something I discovered actually this fall that has been really, really instrumental for me to not go down the rabbit holes.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, interestingly enough, my teenager is the one
Uh-huh.
that turned me onto the brick. Um, And I think that speaks to, that tendency for all of
Yeah.
us to
All of
just go
us.
down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
devices are just kind of made to suck you in, when
Yeah.
they're
Well, they are
and
made.
right,
Yes, they are made to do
right.
that for sure.
And let's be real, like we all get sucked in,
Yeah.
nobody's perfect. We all get sucked into that. I think where we just if you're aware that that's happening and when we talk about prioritization and time management and all of that too, we're talking about like how much time am I actually spending
Mm-hmm.
scrolling, right? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a tool. There's also, settings on your phone and stuff like that that
Mm-hmm.
you can set to try and help with that process. And so we can talk some more about that too. And I mean, that could honestly be a whole session just
Well,
talking about
I
that.
think, yeah, that's the things
Um,
we'll delve
and how
into.
to actually set those
Mhm.
things up because
Yeah,
thankfully
that's
we
what I think we should do.
Thankfully, we have YouTube videos that will help us
Yeah.
to set these things up. So, but all that to say, it is another kind of nice tool. It's a very
Mhm.
intentional tool. It's something you have to
Mhm.
actually actively do,
Yeah.
right?
Or
I have
is,
to
Yeah.
press it up against my phone. I have to
Yeah.
program it a certain way so that it turns my apps off that I don't want to be distracted by while I'm working, or whatever, whatever you happen to need it for. So,
Mhm.
um,
can,
Hang on.
okay.
So
can
yeah, we can hear
so
you.
sorry, like I don't have like the raise your hand
That's
thing
okay. Go
on
for
there.
it.
So, and my that just like I can't bring up chat anymore. I was
Oh,
wondering, I wanted to get more information on like the brick
Yeah.
thing and like
yeah.
be able to like look that up and all that stuff. That
Yeah,
sounds good.
Scott. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Scott, what I'm going to do is I'm going to include that in the link. I'm going to send Dana like the PowerPoint so you guys will have that, and then some of the links, and I'll include the brick in that link so that you can find it. But
Yeah.
you can also just search, I think it's BRIK.
Yeah.
And you can,
It's like literally, if you've heard the term, my phone became a brick,
yeah,
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
not
It's where
that's,
it's just
usable.
like
It's
shut
that.
down
It's
and stuff,
exactly right.
locked up.
Yeah.
yep.
Like a brick that
It's
you
just,
build with.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll include that link. That's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. No,
So
Right.
yeah, I know it's pretty exciting.
yeah. It's one of these things that, again, every time we do any sort of webinar like
Yeah.
this, we have to update
Yeah,
the
we do.
info because it changes
It's
so
changes
quickly,
fast.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're like, ooh, look at this new app,
Yeah.
like
Which also is a rabbit hole, just so we're clear.
right,
So,
right. For us, that's our rabbit hole
yeah.
because we're like,
Uh-huh.
ooh, look at all these things we could
Uh-huh.
use with,
Yeah. 2 hours
Um,
later. I need the
yeah,
Pomodoro method when I do that. So I'll just do it for 20
right.
minutes and not 2 hours.
So
So
after the
okay.
break, I will show you. I will bring the brick to show it to you.
Jamie, we're not going to take an actual break since it's
Oh, we're
two
not.
hours. But we'll just stop and make sure nobody has questions. And
Oh, perfect. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, right. That's fine.
Yeah.
Easy enough. You will have
Yeah.
the link. Sorry.
So the next one, I just want to go through these real quickly.
Yep.
And then, so we have the set alarms and timers, and you guys know this, but somebody had mentioned that the alarms thing, and I want to talk to that real quick.
Yeah.
You can set alarms on your phone. Here's the thing to remember about your brain and alarms is that when you hear the same sound over and over and over, your brain will hear it as white noise and stop listening. So if I have this sound that's like, I have an alarm that is a dinner bell and I hear it over and over and over and it goes off 15 times during a day, my brain is going to stop listening and I'm going to stop paying attention to it. So a couple of things. One, set timers for the most important things, not everything, because you're going to stop listening to it and I'm all about the dismiss.
Right.
The other thing is just like every couple of months, change the sound of your timer. Just put it in your calendar. I mean, sorry, sound of your alarm. Put it in your calendar that you're going to change the sound of the alarm, because you'll stop listening to it. It's the way the brain works. And so I think that's a really important piece around the alarms because, we're really great. We love, love, love setting alarms for our clients. But if you have 15 alarms going out through the day, it stops having the impact of it. So just use it for just the most important things.
I want to speak to just again, there's plenty of, and I do this regularly, I will tell you, it's not just alarms that you're having to swipe away.
Yeah.
It's all the notifications.
Yeah.
It's the things that you forgot about that were somehow hooked up to your email, and now there's like, right. And so any app you have could have a notification set on it, right? And so you might have that could be the overwhelm, right? It might not be just your reminders. It might be all these other random notifications that you're getting. So you may need to spend some time, get a buddy to help you
Yeah.
and go through and get your notifications turned off for the ones that you don't need, right? And I just did this recently because I was like, why is this it was starting to irritate me, honestly,
Yeah.
because I kept getting these notifications. I'm like, this doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't need to see what kind of sales are going on at Michael's every 3 hours. You know what I mean? And so that's just an example, but you see what I'm saying. If there's an app on your
Yeah.
phone, you might want to check the
Change it.
notification settings just to make sure that that's not also happening. Because then your
I'm
brain's going to be like not listening to any of it.
I'm going to throw this out there, and Carrie may kill me, but I was just thinking, I think this is such a big thing that also interrupts all of the things that that we're trying to help you learn. And so if the Brain Injury Association is ever interested in having a get rid of your notifications and get rid of your and change your alarms in-person session, we will be there to help you figure it out, because this is a real problem. And here's the thing is technology on a brain injury, especially if it wasn't your jam in the beginning before the brain injury, it's really hard to figure out. So if the Brain Injury Association is ever interested in doing that,
give us some dates, Maddie. We'll buy lunch.
Yay!
I've got a bunch. I get like Jamie said, I get about 15 from this thing every day, from this clothing thing.
We're gonna do it
from 3 years ago.
Because here's the funny thing is that we think about doing it and then we don't. And so that's one of the things I think that's different about how we work with our clients is we just look at them and go, right now, do it. Like, do it right now. So we'll look at some dates, Carrie, and we'll do that, because I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, let's try to do that in May or June if we
can.
Yeah,
June. Yeah. Because like half of my team is in Europe. Yes, I'm still complaining about that, Jamie. Half of my team is in Europe without me in May. So yeah, let's do it in June. No, I'm not complaining. I'm very happy for them. And then the other thing is, and this is mine, Jamie didn't put this on here, but this is from 30 years experience doing this. Sticky notes are not a strategy. I'm just going to throw that out there.
It will get you very confused very quickly.
You guys, I know when you don't have a planning system, you walk in the office. I saw this at the Brain Injury Association a million times. You pull out all these sticky notes and go, here's my planner. No, that is not a strategy. Sticky notes should only be used if you don't have your planner to then be transferred into your planner. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
And I know some of you are using them. So.
Yeah, sticky notes aren't, evil by themselves.
No, they're not. Well, no, they're not evil by themselves.
As I'm looking at my sticky notes, right? No. But yeah, there's a place for them, and it's a minimal place for them in your planning process is probably better. Yeah, overall. So
for sure.
Okay. So everyday routines and organization. Okay. Why do we care about routines?
You know what? Can we pause real quick? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure, Scott, you asked a question. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or tools that have helped you? And Dana, I can't see people. So if you're seeing hands or seeing people trying to talk, then.
I have gone through all the messages and you have answered all of the questions. Or some of the comments were just, offering some feedback. So.
Okay.
All
right.
Again, not every strategy works for everyone, and we don't want the word strategy to become like a negative word for anybody. It's just basically, what am I doing in order to compensate for whatever thing I got going on, right? That's what strategy is. Okay. So not writing things down and trying to remember them using certain internal memory strategies is a strategy, right? So it's just a word we use, right? The routines and organization. So speaking of things that don't, that they can, I'm sorry.
Hey, Autumn, I see your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Sorry, I was trying to get that up earlier. So what do you guys recommend? Because in my field, I can't necessarily take notes. I don't know, because I have to be constantly alert and both consecutively and simultaneously. And consecutively is it's really hard because it challenges memory, and that's what I have. I have significant difficulty with short-term memory stuff. So is there any techniques that you recommend with that and to help that? Because I can't really use a smart pen because it's all visual. So
can you go ahead and mute because we can hear echo, and I'll answer your question. Thanks, Autumn. We're going to talk at the end of the session about tools, like AI tools and apps that can use. But in those situations, this is where AI, if you can use it. So what we would suggest, especially at a job, that you ask this as an accommodation so that it's an official in your file that you can record, and it's not recording, it's note taking. So that if someone comes up, and you have to you also still have to remember to tell them that you're like taking notes by AI system, but you can say, let me start my AI system, and then they can tell you what you need to know. If it's something like, for example, let's say that during the day, Autumn, go ahead and mute. And then if you have another question, sorry, we're hearing an echo.
It's just echoing. Yeah.
And then I hear myself, and then I get distracted. If let's say that, like, for example, you have to record what you're doing throughout the day, and it's really hard for you to do that. And then, because one of the things we might recommend is that you take notes on the things that you do throughout the day, and then you record that in a timesheet system or something like that. Then we would suggest you just take notes yourself through the day as a reminder. And then what the AI notes do is it doesn't just give you this big old long, here's all the notes. It actually summarizes it and into usually a bullet point and a to-do list. So, but we'll talk more about that at the end of the session.
Yeah. I think, I think partly too what, there's always new things coming out that we don't know about yet, right? As in terms of these apps and different things. But anybody, for example, and, again, note-taking can kind of become a bad word too, because people are like, I don't want to do it or whatever, it's not like when you're in, school and you're taking like pages and pages of notes necessarily, right? It might be something short. But even if someone's utilizing, say, their notepad on their iPhone, to jot things down while they're, in a meeting, there's a conversation happening. Hey, I have a strategy, and do you mind if I just, stop real quick and take a quick note or something like that? And so, we talk sometimes about like how do I communicate that to the people I'm working with, so that I can utilize the strategy, or the accommodation or whatever it is. And yeah, there usually is some back and forth with that, figuring out what works the best for that setting, et cetera. But, so we'll talk some more about that. But when we talk about routines, everyday life examples, home activities, stuff like that, we work mostly, a lot with, people that are trying to return to work and that type of thing. But we start a lot with the home because that's where you live, and that's kind of where your stuff is, and it can tell us a lot about someone's things that they're already doing, the routines that they've already set. And if you haven't set certain routines, you may want to think about establishing something new. Routines can be beneficial. Okay, so it kind of goes back to that, procedural memory, right? You're doing the same thing in the same way every day, potentially, right? A routine is kind of that idea, right? I am doing whatever it is in my morning routine, for example. I generally get up and do this, then I go brush my teeth, then I look at my planner, then I go make my tea, And again, there's some flexibility there because we're humans, we're not robots, we're not computers, where we could just set and have it just do the one thing. We get distracted, we have to come back to it. But the idea of a routine is that it's something that you do routinely, right? It's something that you do on an ongoing basis in a similar way every time. And that's where we start with establishing new strategies and new things that maybe you need to bring into your day. It could be chores. That could be a lot of things.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. Here's the thing, especially every single person, routines matter. So one of the things I'll hear from clients is, and from the people we work with, is they'll be like, well, I don't have anything to do, so I don't really have a routine. The reality is even if you don't have a job, you still have things to do. Right. And the other thing that's really important is that the way the brain works, it looks for patterns and it looks for routine and it looks for the things it knows are going to come up. So when, a lot of times, so for those of us that, and everybody has anxiety, I want to be really clear about anxiety. It is not a bad thing. We've medicalized anxiety and said it's not something you should have. Our brain, anxiety is the way that we maneuver the world and we understand whether or not something's fearful or not. Like that's really what anxiety is for. But what happens when we don't have a routine is our brain doesn't know what to expect. And so it's going to go finding all this other stuff to worry about because it doesn't know what it's doing. So for those of you that are parents, or those of you that remember being a toddler, most of us don't, is we know as parents, when our toddlers and our young kids are young, that we put a routine to place really quickly, because if not, you have all these emotional meltdowns because their brain isn't developed enough to know what to expect. As adults, we're not that different. If I have a routine of every morning, I get up at the same time every day, hopefully, unless I'm not sleeping well, but I get the same time of day. I have a coffee. I, read a little book. I take a shower. If I wake up late, I am an absolute mess the rest of the day because my routine's out of place. So the thing I want you to hear me say is that routines are not about I have to go to work or I have to do this. It is a way that your brain will help understand the world around you, and it will decrease your emotional overwhelm drastically by doing so.
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
Say something.
Is it?
Sorry, do you have a
Yeah,
question?
Scott.
Oh yeah, I know routines are like because of my short-term memory and stuff, and
Yeah.
I process things, slower. I mean, routines are really good, but like sometimes I feel like if I rely too heavily on routine, like I can't deal with stuff that
Point. That's a
comes
great
up
point.
and things like
Yeah.
that. So I don't know how
Yeah.
to really
Yeah,
deal
there's
with that
Yeah.
usually
stuff
there's a
improve
balance
and
there
stuff.
for sure.
Yeah. And Scott, I think that's I think that's a good point. And I think that's part of often some of the symptoms of brain injury is an inflexibility. It doesn't mean that I don't like that word because it sounds like this really awful word that you're inflexible, but it means that because your brain, if I mentioned, like if my day gets messed up in the morning, then my day is kind of like that the whole day. I also have the capacity to go, all right, Maddie, like we don't have to do it this way. We can change. This is going to and that's where that inflexibility comes from, is that your brain injury often doesn't allow you to change very clearly. And so there's a balance, like Jamie said. And I think what you're probably experiencing, and I don't know, is more around if the routine is out of place, your brain doesn't know what to do. And so it just gets stuck. Like, do you think that's it?
I, I don't know. It just seems like if I don't know, certain things I'll try to do something and I can do it and I get, I get just set in how it's supposed to be. And then you throw like just some
That's the
little
inflexibility.
change and it throws everything
Yep.
off and it feels like I have to learn everything all over again. And, so
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the inflexibility. And again, I don't want you to hear the word as you're inflexible, but your brain doesn't maneuver very well. So if like if a branch gets put into my day, my brain has the capacity to go, okay, well that happened, so then I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4 to get back on track. That's a really hard thing to do for a brain. And when you have a brain injury, it doesn't make that jump. So what I'm going to say is this would be a really good topic for us to talk about in our second session, because I think this is a real clear thing. And again, I want to be clear too about the routine. So we're not saying every day is going to look the same, because that's not life. What we're saying is that there are things that you can do, and these are those things right here that you can do to make your day go easier so that your brain knows what to kind of expect, and it decreases the overwhelm. Autumn made a comment is that, her job can change. And that is the truth. Like and we're going to talk about this too, there's only a certain amount of things that you have control over. So we're trying to give you the things that you have control over, because a lot of other things you don't. So yeah. So Scott, I think that's a great thing. And we'll address that more in the second session, because I think that's important. Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, okay. All right, so these are just examples of some things that you might be doing or not. But routines and organization can look like, waking up at the same time every day. That's kind of a common one that we think about, right? And there's benefits, right? We know that there's sleep benefits to trying to keep consistent with your awake and your late, your sleep times if you can. But it can also be like having a home for your essentials, right? And when I say essentials, it might mean like your purse, your wallet, your keys, your day planner, or your phone charging station, all of that. And the reason that that is helpful is that if your stuff doesn't have a home that it goes to every single time, there can be a lot of stress that comes over when you can't find it, right? And then that can be another thing that kind of throws your day off a bit, right? And so having things in a home, it can be really, really helpful. In my kitchen, things have a home, right? The blender always goes this place. The forks always go to this, this one drawer here. And so I don't have to spend a lot of time of my day and energy thinking about, well, where are the forks? Because they're always in the same place, essentially, right? So it's the same idea kind of with the things that you need to have when you're leaving the house. You always know, hey, I have a desk, my planner goes on it. This is where I go to double check my schedule. This is, where I keep my, whatever it is that you need, right? Some people have this by their front door, it just depends. It depends on your house and kind of what works for you. But it's something to think about. If you're finding that you're spending a lot of energy searching for things that you need on a regular basis, then it's possible that you need to just say, okay, this is where this stuff goes, and this is its home, and this is where I'm going to keep it all the time. So routines are right, if possible. This doesn't always work for everybody all the time, but if there is the possibility of you doing certain tasks on the same days of the week, every week, at the same time of day, generally every day, whatever it happens to be. Examples here are things like, oh, I go to the gym these certain days at this certain time, right? That's part of that routine. You can expect it, you can kind of count on it, right? And unless something comes up, like you're sick or whatever, like you generally are going to the gym at these times of the week, and you can kind of count on that. Bed every, the same time every day. There's other, again, like we said, there's benefits to the sleeping portion of that, but that kind of also speaks to, I'm winding my day down at the same time every day. I'm not letting myself stay up and doing whatever it is that's now causing me stress, and now I can't fall asleep, and now I'm starting my next day off really not very good, right? And so it can be helpful for that. And then work, volunteering, whatever it happens to be, right? We can't always do this, but if you can, I volunteer on Tuesdays pretty much all the time, right? That's the day I go. And so that can also help with the memory piece, because now that's part of your routine. It doesn't change a whole lot. And so that's kind of what some of the ways we can use routines in our planning and our organization.
Yeah, and just to tie this to work a little bit is that you can ask for an accommodation, and we have a whole 2 days around working, but we can ask for an accommodation for the same shift. So we do this a lot because, again, if you have a different shift every week or every day, then that can be really difficult on your brain to regroove into the routines. That is not something they have to honor because it could impact other people, but we typically do ask for that when there's shift work involved, because then that helps people know, okay, because what's going to happen is if you work Monday, Wednesday, Friday one day, and then Tuesday, Saturday the next day, odds are you're going to show up late, or you're not going to show up because the brain isn't remembering what to do. This is when the planner comes in really important. But just so you know, if you work shift work, then that is something you can ask for an accommodation. And again, that's a whole other, we do that return to work seminar as well that we talk through that, but I just wanted to point that out. So,
and again, even if you don't work shift work, that's where those time blocks can come into play, right? You're scheduling yourself generally the same day of the week or whatever that you're going to do.
Oh, I did it again.
Whatever the thing is that you need to do. So,
yeah.
Oh, look, sleep. We are talking about sleep. I think we've all heard this, how important sleep is. And how, we covet sleep sometimes because we're not getting enough. But we know that generally adequate sleep, and it can vary from person to person what exactly that means. It's really, really crucial for your cognitive function and your ability to be able to focus on tasks during the day. And when we don't sleep well, it can significantly affect a lot of areas, right? It can affect our ability to be flexible. It can affect our ability to focus on tasks, to initiate tasks, to come up with a plan for the day. Just all of those things are kind of tied in together. And so it can be really, working towards the best sleep you can possibly have it can be really important. So,
and I just want to add too, don't want to discount how difficult this is for some people after brain injury. I don't want you to think we're saying like, here's some tips and go do them and you'll be fine. There are so many factors after brain injury with sleep because the brain's trying to readjust. It's trying to figure out there's sleep wake cycles. Some of you guys, ended up sleeping for months because of the level of injury you had. There's so many factors to this. So I just want to I don't want to discount how we're not saying this is simple at all. However, what I find is that people don't really understand what we call sleep hygiene. And so we like to go through it because if you don't sleep, it absolutely impacts your attention and concentration and planning inside your brain.
Yeah.
So,
very good point.
Yeah.
So obviously, regularity is a factor, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, right? We try to maintain the same wake up times, even on weekends. I'll be honest, not been my strong suit for a lot of my life, right? I am finally learning what this means and how to do this. And it's not always perfect, right? But, we're evaluating, we're constantly thinking about, is this working? Is this not working? Why am I tired? But that could be a factor possibly to think about that might be adjustable in some way. So that's something you can maybe think about. And that would be, even on your days off, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're not changing anything by sleeping way too long into the day or something like that. So again, just food for thought. Think about what your life is like, what your sleep is like, and this just might be something to process and think through. But right, that affects the stress response significantly, right? This says cortisol timing, but yes, cortisol and stress go together. And that can affect a lot of things as well. So morning light. So this is a way to try and help you trigger your alertness, is to try to get direct sunlight in the morning. Your body responds to it, right? It says, hey, it's time to be awake. And so that can help set your timer. And there's a lot of chemical stuff that goes on in your body with that. But
and this is interesting because the melatonin is what gets released in your body, in your brain when you get into direct sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
And but one of the things I think that's really important is that I was going to tell you there's kind of cool new tool out there because there's so many people that struggle with sleep. There's all this stuff they're doing now for sleep, and there's all this stuff you can purchase. But there's actually a little it's a little round machine, I guess, that you put on your nightstand, and when your time to wake up, it actually directly looks like sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
So that your brain goes, oh, because sometimes you can't get direct sunlight. Sometimes it's hard to do that if you're in an apartment or you're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and there is no sunlight. So there are other tools that you can use. And like I said, I think we'll go more into this at our second session around those actual tools, but there's one that will actually simulate sunlight to help you get through that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's alarm clocks that have lamp. I mean, there's all different ones. Somebody's mentioning there's an alarm clock lamp that does that. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
So
Absolutely. Cambria,
you can
great.
find all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
at all different price points
Yeah.
that have some sort of function that's similar to what she's talking about for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I'll take this next one because it's got a weird word in it.
Mhm.
So the wake window, and I had another presentation and pulled this over, and then I realized I had this word in it. So the 90-minute wake window, all that says is that you have a cycle that you're there's this really cool book called Why We Can't Sleep, and it was written by a journalist who had insomnia, and she started doing research. And one of the things that she realized, so what the scientists know, is that we have a 90-minute cycle that really goes in and out of the cognitive peaks. And so the reason why I'm mentioning that is that we can't, like Jamie said, most of us cannot concentrate for 2 hours. We can't do it.
Maybe
Some
some.
people can,
Maybe
and I am
some.
so jealous about that.
Me
So
too.
most of us
Me
are
too.
around, non-brain injury, most of us are around, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the level that we have. And so, but part of what this really means is find those periods of time. And we mentioned this earlier, find those periods of time that your brain is actually better. Mine is from 6 to 9. I'm 6 to 9, I'm all golden. After 9, I start going down. I do again. I have another little period of time before I go to bed. So it's about really understanding your brain and how it works. So if you are a morning person, you don't want to sleep until 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because you just lost all your brain power that you have for the day. And so that's why these kind of wake windows are really important to know.
Yeah. I mean, we realize sometimes, there's not a lot of options,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, if things are working fairly okay and you're able to kind of concentrate on like, what's my pattern here?
Yeah.
That could be helpful information for you to know, right?
Yeah.
You can start to utilize that
Yeah.
to be your most efficient self, or have the better times of day be the ones where you're doing the bulk of your work,
Right.
so it can be helpful information for you.
Yeah.
And when I mean work, I mean whatever that work is, right? It could be
Yeah.
housework, it could be employer employee kind of work, it could be any of those things. So yeah, we talked about this a little bit ago. And now there's all kinds of studies about this.
Yeah.
And how important it is that we don't look at screens before we're trying to go to bed. So basically the idea is that blue light from your devices will suppress the melatonin, okay, for up to 4 hours after you've been exposed to the blue light, okay? So think about that for a second. If we're doing the math and we're laying in our bed at 10 p.m. looking at our blue light, it's possible that the functions that are supposed to happen when the sun goes down, that tell our body that it's time to start relaxing and getting ready for sleep, aren't happening the same way, right? Because we've been staring at the blue light. We all do this. I mean,
Yeah, we do.
this is like,
Yeah.
we're not getting away from screens. Screens are
Yeah.
part of our life, right? This is just how it is. But think about this in your own life and think about what it is that you're doing with your screens and when you're doing it, right? And just, you can just kind of process through that. And if you're noticing you've kind of fallen into a pattern where you're on the screens for a long time and you're doing it like right before you want to go to sleep, that might be something to consider in terms of maybe changing that pattern a little bit so that maybe you're letting that screen time stop. A general recommendation is a hard cutoff for screens at 1 hour before you're going to actually want to lay down and go to sleep.
And I want to explain the hard cutoff. That means nothing.
Yeah. No
That
screens.
is not I'll get on my phone. Like I get off my phone at around 5 p.m. I'm off my phone, but I'll look at it Like I'll sometimes 6. I'll take a look at it. Oh, somebody got me a text. I'll look at it for a minute and I put it down. That's a hard cutoff. No phone.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard for people to, because and I think this is a really important point because so much of our lives are generated around the phone and our reminders and our calendars. And so there's a moment that you have to kind of go, okay, how much do I really need on this phone if this is what it's interrupting? So
I know it's very complex. Like this is not an easy problem.
Yeah.
And we realize like, we're saying, hey, use your phone calendar. Yeah. Right. We get that. And again, to the point before, like thankfully there's ways to kind of work around this. And I agree. I can't always do it perfectly. I'm trying very hard. I've started a new routine myself where I am not looking at my phone for at least 30 minutes after I wake up. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't always do it because guess what? Someone texts me.
Yeah.
It's something about my kid. Like it's not like you can always perfectly do it. And we totally understand that. But I think just as a general rule, we're going, okay, how long am I actually doing this? And is it infringing or whatever on my sleep cycle? Like, and how is it doing that? And can I do something that might help me over time kind of regain that sort of sleepy thing at the end of the day where now I can actually lay my head down and maybe get some sleep, and so it's just another thing to consider. If you're having trouble sleeping, it's not always just because of that, and we realize that. Like it's not just about screens. It's about your injury. It's about your life. It's about the people that you have to take care of. It's all of these things. This is just one thing to think about that could maybe it's not too hard to put some limits around.
Get that brick.
Yeah.
I'll give you that link.
Right. That could be helpful for you in regards to the quality of your sleeping. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're saying. So when you say, Maddie, to shift to analog input, again, right, we're talking about a routine, right? We're talking about a bedtime routine. Okay. So, it's right. It's, sorry, I got distracted for just a second. Maybe you take up a new old hobby, right? Like, oh, I used to read all the time and I kind of stopped doing that. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe perhaps a puzzle or a book or listening to music or, I know sometimes that's on our phone, so we got to be careful there, but there's a lot of things you could maybe do instead, I guess, instead of the doom scroll, and you want to talk about cognitive offloading?
Yeah. So this is, so even though you have a to-do list, often things come up throughout the day that may impact your brain. So I go to sleep fine. I wake up at 2:00 in the morning with all the things I need to be doing the next day. So this is one of the reasons why it's really important for me to look at my calendar before I go to sleep so that but I also then offload anything that I didn't get done. So it's not sitting around in my brain. So it's like, oh, that's right. I still need to send that email. I need to figure out what to eat for tomorrow. So I'll sit and just actually do this offloading so that, it goes on my to-do list or it just goes on a sheet of paper. Because what happens is it forces my brain to stop thinking about it, because your brain's going to sit there and think about something until you do something with it. So especially if you have problems waking up and then you lay there and you're just thinking, it doesn't have to be worry. Like I'll sit there and think about how the construction truck went through the road. I don't know. Like it's just weird stuff. I'll just sit and cognitive offload that before I go to bed so that my brain doesn't have to think about it. And there's a place for it on a sheet of paper. So, and it just helps your brain wind down.
Yeah. I suppose there's other possibilities of how to do that. Besides writing it down, but that's one way to do it for sure.
I'm always the fan of writing it down because of the ability, or, if you have problems writing, which some people do, and I get that, at least speak it into into the world or into an app, at least like if you can speak it. And the reason why speaking is really important is because what happens is that your brain's not trying to internally remember all of it. It uses another part of your brain, your audio, and it processes it differently. So
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. This is a lot of information. So
Yeah, it is.
just take
It
a
is.
breath. We'll all take a breath for a
Yeah.
minute, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so clutter and disorganization. Okay, so I mean, I think we could probably all go, yeah, I've done that. But clutter can very much impact your focus and your ability to focus and increase your stress levels as well. And so the way we deal with this, again, we can talk about that one spot, having a home for things, one rule, right? Designating a single area for your essentials, stuff like that. Okay. That doesn't necessarily help if, our entire house is a tornado hit it and it looks like stuff's everywhere all the time. But we start with this, right? You can start with, okay, what are my main things that I need to always be able to have access to, right? And finding that spot to put them.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was just going to give an example. So, and this is again, this is a problem for everybody. But the thing about when you have a brain injury, you don't have the internal control to walk through things sometimes. And so we're all about taking the cognitive load off, what I call that cognitive energy level that you're using for other things. But as an example, every morning, my son is 15. He has no spots for anything. He has ADHD. There's nothing in his life that he knows where anything is. And every single morning, he is running around like a chicken with the head cut off to try to figure out where his stuff is. Every single morning, I get mad about it. And it starts our day in a really bad space. It's kind of this panic then because we got to go. So we finally just had to say, this is where your stuff goes. So every night, we'll look at him and go, where's your stuff? And he goes and puts it in that one spot. So he knows where those things are. And it has decreased the level of our stress in a very, very direct way. So I think the thing to remember is that when you're, and we hear this all the time from our folks that we work with, because the transportation shows up early, because that's what they do. And they, just go, oh my gosh, I don't have all my stuff is. Where's all my stuff? And then they go into this panic and there's a stress. And then it's just kind of, it gives you it does a theme for the day of just being solely stressed out. So it's really important that you find a space in your house or your apartment or your room where all your stuff is so that you don't have to have that panic all the time. Okay.
Next.
Ah.
Oh, yes. So decluttering tips. Again, don't try to, bite the entire bite off at once, I guess is what a little bit at a time, maybe. Your desk, one room, shrink it down, right? Because I know some of us are going, oh, like, yeah, my one thing is kind of messy. But some of us are going, every room I have access to is all over the place, right? And that can be very overwhelming. And so, start with the high priority spot, right? Like maybe it's your room, maybe it's your workstation. You have to decide what that is. But these are just some strategies to help try to manage some cluttering, okay? There's one in, one out. And this takes a lot of discipline. Okay.
Yeah,
this
it
takes a lot of
does.
discipline to do this. But
Yeah.
for every time you get something new into your home, you have to take something out. All right. So the idea is that you are regulating the amount of stuff that is piling into your home or to your workspace, right? It's not always easy to do this. We get that, right? But this is a way to do that. Some people are great at this. Okay.
I am not.
Right? Some people are not so great at this, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
this is something you could try. All right.
Yep.
And like I said, I would start with something small. Your one closet. Okay. Your workstation. The one bathroom, right? Whatever it is, just go there. Do that one room first. But yeah, if something new comes in, if I get a new t-shirt, I'm donating an old t-shirt that I don't wear as much anymore. Okay. In terms of clothes, a lot of the time, if it's a clothes thing, my general rule is if I haven't worn it, and this is pretty generous, if I haven't worn it in 2 years,
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to wear it, right? And so, but again, you have to decide for yourself what those parameters are, okay? That's just mine. That's my general rule for myself.
Hey, Jamie,
yes.
real quick, I'm just giving a time check. We have about 10 minutes. So
okay. So I'll stop bantering. All right.
Sorry.
So categorizing, don't organizing. Okay. So you're grouping things that are similar together. Okay. So using like a bin or like a basket or something, and you can group everything together that kind of goes together, right? This example is all batteries in a single bin. Okay, so you don't have them in multiple drawers in your house. You have one bin that you keep in the one place and that has all your batteries in it, for example. Okay. Minimize distractions. So keeping your workplaces sterile, right? The idea there is that you decide what task you're going to work on and you bring out the things you need for that task. Okay. And then when that task is done, you put those things away because you don't need them anymore. Okay. Some things you have to use for everything, and that's fine, but this is just a way that you could maybe organize and declutter. Having somebody, this is actually body doubling. So this is actually a way to help focus. Okay. So body doubling is basically having another person present with you, somebody that won't distract you, right? That's good also with working. Okay. But having two people working together in the same space can sometimes help both of them improve their focus on their task. Maddie and I are sitting across from each other. We're going to chit chat. So maybe we don't work together that way, right? You just kind of have to know who you're talking with, but there's people that you can buddy up with that maybe help you with the focusing part of the working.
Carrie, I saw that you came off mute. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a Zoom support group that starts at 2 that somehow got on the.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry. Can you end about 150? At least this is a 2-parter. So
yeah, for sure. So I think what we'll do the next time is that we're going to look at some tips. We're going to look at strategies to follow through, and then we're going to look at AI tools, but we're also going to do some more specific. I think we'll do some more specific work around. We gave you some introduction on how all these things work, but we're going to talk about what does that really look like. So what does a planner really look like? What does, all the